Hello. I love you. I missed you. Somebody else wants to say hello too. All right, my friends. That's a great start to today's video. I'm so happy. Shh. Okay. Okay. Well, since I'm looking at my head, it looks a little bit better. This part still hasn't grown in yet, but I think overall it's looking better. I am so happy to be back home. Okay. It's our first day back from Miami, and I wanted to talk all about the trip and so much more. Let me start off, I guess, in reverse chronological order and just collectively as a whole. It was so exhausting, but I'm so glad that I did it, and I did it the way that I did it. For me, I think one of the reasons it was so exhausting is because I made sure every single day to work out when I was in Miami. And I don't want to pat myself too much in the back for that, because I needed to, because of the way I was eating. Oh my God, I really allowed myself to, And I know myself enough to know that's what I was gonna do. I don't know moderation. I'm Cuban, I'm an Aries, I go big. But every single day, 7 days, I worked out with a trainer. I found a great private training facility near the rental house that I was staying at. Very affordably priced too. I loved the area I was staying at, by the way. I never really spent much time in Pinecrest growing up in Miami, because I lived in Westchester and I went to school by Belen, at Belen, that area. And my other family lived in Little Havana and Hialeah. And anyways, I'm glad that my mom was able to be there with us and that she had a great time. My mom is the main reason I went to Miami, because she didn't join us at Big Bear. She didn't join us in Cambria. She's not joining us when I go away for Memorial Day. And I'm not mad at that. You gotta do what makes you happy. If you don't wanna go on any trip, I'm not gonna force my mom to do it. I'm not even gonna guilt her at all. I was like, you know, do what you want, but I knew she would love Miami. And that was the main reason I did it. And there were a few challenges with my mom on the trip. First of all, she's the worst backseat driver. She drove me crazy. And people in Miami are awful drivers. I mean, awful. I was having heart attacks, like turning without signaling that they're gonna go onto your lane and just going so much faster than the speed limit. But thankfully, nobody was hurt. And my mom went to the cemetery. My mom always goes to the cemetery when she's in Miami, but I don't. She made a point of mentioning how my sister always goes to the cemetery when she visits Miami. I don't think it makes me any less of a son or grandson or a bad person, but I just don't feel good in the cemetery. And I don't think it's disrespectful. In fact, I was drawn to other experiences that were literally calling my name from my dad and my grandparents. I felt the need to go visit my childhood home. I felt the need to go visit my childhood apartment where I lived for the 6 years that I was born and up until 6. And I felt the need to go and take my mom to the Chinese restaurant where she and my dad ate the day before he died. And my mom had not been since. And I felt the need to take my mom to the Biltmore. That Chinese restaurant, by the way, is named Tropical Chinese. The best dim sum in all of Miami. If you are visiting or live there, you have to go to Tropical Chinese. And I had to take my mom to the Biltmore for brunch, which my dad used to take her to as well, and she hadn't been since then. Maite wants to say hi too. Say Say hi. Oh, that's dirty. Ew. Say hi. Hi. Anyways, I got really emotional at the supermarket where my mom used to work at, where she met my dad. If it weren't for that supermarket, my parents probably wouldn't have gotten together. It's not called the same thing anymore. It used to be called La Perla. Now it's called Colón Supermarket. And I remember that little shopping mall so well. The outdoor stand, the outdoor window where they would serve food used to always be popping. Now that's closed and they just serve food in the supermarket indoors. And yeah, we just did so much. I got to see family, saw my uncle, who's, God bless, 83, 84 now, my mom's brother, and I saw my aunt, and I saw my cousins, and it was great to see them. All of our birthdays are right around the same time. My birthday, my uncle's birthday, my aunt's birthday. Got to eat some of my aunt's food. She's the best Cuban cook I know. And did so many new things too. I loved it. I went to the Frost Museum of Science, which is only 2 years old. And if you have a family and live in Miami or are visiting, you gotta go. That was my favorite thing we did. Almost tied with going to see the Marlins for opening day. But my kids enjoyed the Science Museum more. I loved the Marlins game because there was free food and drink in the dugout club, and they hooked us up with the most amazing seats right behind home plate. I went to Carvel with my mom. I went to El Farito, this beach that I used to go to all the time when I was growing up with my family. We even celebrated one of my dad's birthdays there, but it was so different. Bill Baggs State Beach used to have all of these pine trees, but after one of the hurricanes, they were destroyed or all fell down, and they decided not to replant the pine trees because they're not native to that area. Instead, they went and planted them with native trees like marshes, or is that what it's called? I don't know. We went to the youth fair, the county fair, the Dade County. The county's not even called Dade County anymore. Now it's called Miami-Dade County. That much has changed. And they're building everywhere in Miami, not just in Brickell or Miami Beach. In La Sabuesera, in the real close to the heart of Little Havana, they're building apartment buildings. And yeah, the county fair in Los Angeles isn't a huge deal that I'm aware of, but in Miami, it's a huge deal. We went there, we ate our faces off. I had a corn dog, an arepa, a gyro, frozen cheesecake on a stick dipped in chocolate, an ice cream, something else, I'm sure. An ice cream of the future. I went for it. We went to Homestead. I took the kids on an animal adventure. We went to the Miami Seaquarium. We went to the Coral Castle, which is a fascinating story of this Latvian immigrant from the 30s who built this on his own, with his own hands, for the love of his life, who dumped him back in Latvia. We went to the Nosberry Farm and got some cinnamon rolls and milkshakes. We went to this church that my mom loves. Here's a funny story. I went to the church. It's insane. This is an insane story. I'm looking at it as a positive sign, a good omen. I was wearing these new old shoes. If you know me, you know I'm a hoarder. I keep all my clothes and shoes, and if I don't wear them that much, I still keep it, okay? So I had these old shoes that I had only worn maybe once or twice before. So they were new, but they were old, and I had kept them in my closet. I get to the church, La Ermita de la Caridad, and as soon as I step foot outside the church, all of a sudden I'm like, what's going on? My sole of the shoe, my tennis shoe, came off. Like it melted off or something. I think God loves me. I was like, wow, that's fascinating. And then it was driving me crazy, and I had to drive all the way from Coconut Grove to Davie, where my aunt and uncle and cousins live, and I just did not feel comfortable driving with my shoe like that, so I had to rip the sole off of my shoe. And then if you look at the photos, you might be able to see, I posted photos from the Ermita de la Caridad, and I had still on the soles of the shoes there. But then when we went to Wynwood Walls, I don't have the soles of the shoes on in the photos. Little tidbit I hadn't shared with you guys yet. Yeah, it was wild to see how Miami's changed from the brand new Marlins Park to the new Science Museum to the whole Wynwood and Miami Design District. I mean, if work took me back to Miami, I would move back to Miami, but my work as of now is still here. Opportunity is still here, is what I'm telling myself. But you know what? Anything is possible. I can move to Vegas. I'll move where the work is, but it needs to be a serious commitment, because moving is the worst. I know my mom would be happy if I moved back to Miami. Part of me feels like it might be easier to meet men in Miami. I don't know. It's hard. It's hard for me to meet men. Yeah, traveling wasn't too bad with the kids. They've, you know, when you spend that much time with people, you really start to rub off on each other, positive and negative. I recorded the podcast earlier today, and Booker said, you kept saying, ay, 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 5 times in the podcast today. I was like, really? I didn't even notice that. I told him it must have been my kids. My kids rubbed off on me. I kept saying, ay, ay, ay. That's such a my kids thing to say. And then it's made me start to think like, God, I'm programming my kids, and my kids are programming them, and I love them. And I got so happy that I'm making these memories, and we're doing more trips coming up. And I did feel guilty not uploading on this channel as much as I normally do, and not uploading on my main channel, but you know what? It is what it is, and I'm back, and I don't regret it. And it's also so wild. I was at the gym this morning, and I was talking to my trainer, saying how my kids are so sheltered, but that's not a bad thing. Like, their cousins all know music and who the musicians are, and I love music, but my kids don't know, because I don't give them an iPhone or an iPad. They don't have access to that. And when they listen to the radio in the car with me, it's not the radio. I have my own playlist that I have on my iPod. I'm old, I still have an iPod. And it's kind of like obscure artists that I'm playing, not radio stuff. But my son, who doesn't get to watch much TV at home, just every once in a while on the weekends, loved watching the TV on the plane. He watched Venom, and then he started playing Angry Birds. And he's like, after I woke up from a little nap on the plane on the ride back, he's like, Dad, look. And he showed me how he could play Angry Birds. And I'm like, how did you figure this out? Because it's in English. You don't read English, and you've never played this before. And he said, I looked at the instructions and I looked at the photos, and I'm like, you're a smart kid. And you know what? I think it's good that they're sheltered. If music is a passion of theirs, they'll discover that on their own when they discover it. I'm glad that my kids are going to remain kids as long as possible, and they'll be smart and loved and know that their dad sacrificed sleep, sacrificed a lot for them happily, because I love them with all of my heart. And I wish I could have a 4th, but I can't afford it. I keep hoping and praying for a huge gig, but it may not happen. You know, it is what it is. I may just be doing this for the next 20 years. Hopefully I can keep growing this. Your help means so much. I got a few new podcast listeners in Miami because I was working at the small private training gym, and I never assume people know who I am or what I do, especially when they're straight dudes. I had 3 people working with me at that gym, 2 straight dudes and a lovely girl who had just moved from Venezuela 3 years ago. So I think maybe they knew or they weren't sure. I don't know, but they all asked me what I did. It's just what you do. They asked me what I did in Los Angeles, and I got real awkward. And I said, oh, I'm a podcaster. And I said, I also do YouTube and whatever pays. That's what I said. And then the guy, one of them asked, oh, what's the name of your podcast? And I said, The PHP with Chris Booker. Then eventually he's like, you're Perez Hilton. You never told me. My cousins love you so much. So shout out to his cousins. Shout out to all of the lovely people that I met in Miami that recognized me 15 years later. I do not take you for granted. I'm glad I got to hug you and meet you. And I am excited for the podcast show this Saturday in Los Angeles. We just have, I think, like 2 tickets left. I'm calling that a sellout. The remaining 2 tickets are going to sell out before Saturday. So thank you to everybody who bought tickets. And if you didn't get one, couldn't get a meet and greet because they sold out before the general admission, you want to see us, PerezTour.com for info and tickets to our show in Las Vegas at the end of this month. PerezTour.com. I'm so happy to be back. I love you. Slowly getting back into the swing of things. Thank you for your support. You are a superstar.